Roland, thank you very much. I will directly start live sharing my screen. So I also have to close like YouTube and everything. So if there's questions, please write them in the chat and then Ronan can tell them me via audio. Also, there will be time for questions in the end. So you right now should see my screen, right? Cool. So on the presentation, there will be questions or time for questions in the end. In this talk, I'm going to talk about how to win against ad blockers. You see on the right the Tom and Jerry cat and mouse game between us with Matomo or all other tracking scripts, analytics scripts, and the ad blockers. Here, as it's my main test case, is uBlock your origin. As you see at the bottom right, there will sometimes be blue call outs with URLs, with short URLs. Here you will get all the slides and later also recording. You will also get again in the last slide. So no worries if you can't type it right now. Just one organizational note. I'm German. I'm holding this talk in English, but there's a second talk at 3 p.m. Sorry, the text is still wrong because Roland just told me that I'm wrong with the times. So um 3 Uhr werde ich den gleichen Talk nochmal auf Deutsch halten im Raum 3. Also wenn du ihn lieber auf Deutsch hören willst, dann gerne da vorbeischauen. But now get back into English and let's get started. What is the problem? I assume most of you know this already, but if you don't, if you just like walked by and see, okay, want to hear Simon talk, more and more users are installing ad blockers. And the problem there is that when they install ad blockers, they obviously do it for the reason of not wanting to see ads on, I don't know, New York Times and so on. But also these ad blockers block analytics scripts as well. This is fine for Google Analytics and so on, but for us, obviously, it's a problem. And how big this problem is, I show you in this chart. So you see the ad blocking penetration rate in selected countries in the third quarter of 2022. So this is already 2 years old. I assume the number gone up since then, roughly by 5 to 10%, if not even more. But you saw back then already in 2022, we had 35.7% global penetration rate of ad blockers. So people installing ad blockers, or maybe better said, having some sort of ad blocking, tracking blocking technology in their browsers. Also for clarification, I will use ad blocking, tracking blocking, and so on more or less interchangeably. I will mostly talk about tracking because we don't serve ads with Matomo, we have tracking, but ad blockers also block the tracking. As Matomo is a French project, I also put France on the very bottom. There's more, but I cut off the rest of the chart with 34%. Germany has 35%, and what you see at the very top, it's China, Indonesia, and Vietnam with over 40% of ad blockers. And I think the most important thing to take away from this chart is, first of all, ad blocking is a problem for us. Like we have over 30%, like 1/3 of people where we don't get events, we don't get conversions for, I don't know, our ad campaigns and so on. And also it really depends on the cohorts. I think this is also a really interesting thing you see here. Basically, the youngest countries with the youngest and with that most digital populations are at the very top. So you see China, Indonesia are quite young and also quite digital countries. And this means depending on your target audiences, this ad blocking rate will be even higher. For example, if you try to target, or if your service, if your software, however, your website is for technology-minded people, there will be even higher than 40%. I assume 90% of tech people have some sort of ad blocking in their browser via a plugin, via browser itself, and more browsers also rolling this out, which mostly Safari on mobile being the biggest problem, but more on that later. So today in this talk, we are going to go technical from the left to the right. So on the left, you see I use the Matomo cloud, so the hosted Matomo service. And you see that uBlock Origin fully blocks it. You have the red in there, all events. None of the events would reach the server. So if I open the website with my browser configuration, with my uBlock Origin installed, no one would know, or like Mato wouldn't know that I actually opened the website. And in the end of this talk, we will be back to 100% event coverage. We will go into certain steps, what you can do step by step to actually circumvent this ad blocking, technical hands-on. But I also will give you the tools to, if this changed again, as said, cat and mouse game in the future, you know how to debug this yourself. Along the way, if you want to know how to win against something, you need to know your enemy. as said, I really like AdBlockers, but like for our case, it's the enemy, and you will also learn how they work. Most of them work all the same. So all the logos you see here, most of them use AdBlock lists apart from Privacy Badger. But as you will see in this talk, we can fool them even faster. But maybe here the question, isn't this highly unethical? Isn't this even maybe illegal that we do this? Because people are blocking or ad blocking for a reason. And here I just give two ideas. You have to figure this out for yourself. I assume if you're in this talk, you already decided that you want to prevent ad blocking. One thing is the bad guys are doing it as well. So we with like privacy first analytics shouldn't shy away from it. So these techniques you see here, they are not world new. They are something that it's knowledge that's out there and others are doing it, so we can do it as well. I know this is most of a, hey mom, my friends also jumped the cliff, so I'm allowed to do it as well, kind of reasoning. So it's not really, really good, but this is one thought I had. The other one is GDPR, cookie consent, do not track preferences obviously still apply. Everything we do in this talk just makes sure that the JavaScript, the Matomo.js, and the server side actually can be reached and can get the events. You still decide if you want to have do not track preferences, if you want to have users opt out, and also the cookie notices, depending if you're in the EU or not. So all of the things we have right now already apply. We are still in the same legal framework. If you already kind of illegally track users or set cookies without asking them, it's already a bad thing. Nothing in this talk changes that. And if you already do it the correct way, everything we learn in this talk also will not change that. So it's roughly a technical idea and less of the philosophical one of should we do this or not. I would say we are allowed to do this, we can do this, and it's more about the technical feasibilities. A little bit about me. Simon here. I'm building things on the internet for over 14 years now. I think I wrote my first Visual Basic script in Excel with like 12 or something when my parents let me use the computer. From a professional standpoint, in the past, I built and maintained huge cloud infrastructure with like 50 million active users as head of infrastructure at the streaming or like streaming search engine JustWatch with like a small team of SREs. And also one important thing for this talk is JustWatch itself has a big part of their revenue from ad revenue and also has their own kind of tracking script. So some of the knowledge you learned today I also have from this position and saw in like huge systems and with a lot of users. At the very moment, I'm a founder and CTO at the very small startup Beans and Bytes. It's an AI development shop for small and medium-sized businesses. Our core market is Germany, Mittelstand, but we operate all over Europe. And as you see, I can speak very well in English as well. So if you have any questions regarding AI or need your processes digitalized, reach out to me. But this is not why I'm here. I'm not here for AI. I'm not here for past job experiences. As Ronan already said, a few years back, roughly 5 years ago, I built an open source project. I think I built the best because it's the only AdBlock circumvention tool for Matomo. You can see it on simon.red/mcab. It's the tool. It's for your self-hosted Matomo instances, and it roughly implements the techniques you will learn today within this talk. So this is for all self-hosted instances. It's quite straightforward way how to actually use this. And because of that, at some point, Ronan reached out and asked me if I would want to talk about it, also a little bit promote the tool here as well. So yeah. Disclaimer, if you're here, if you're not technical, you might have a rough start. So this is a technical talk. I'm assuming that you know about the browser console. I'm assuming you know about JavaScript, a little bit PHP, connections, and so on. If you're not technical and you just want your problem solved, I take money for fixing problems. So reach out to me at meet@simonfrey.com and we can get the sort out how you're doing it. But for all the tech people in here, let's finally go over all the all the advertisement for myself and let's get into it. So this is how it looks when we are blocked by 35% of all users. You see my own website here. I installed the Matomo script there. We will also have live coding within this talk where we, from one step to another, go through the process, what I'm explaining here. You see at the very top, this is uBlock origin again, and you see here Matomo Cloud is blocked. And also kind of when you are debugging why your script isn't loaded, it's always interesting to check the console and the network tab. In the network tab, you see here, this is the small line. I zoomed in a little bit for you. You see the CDN Matomo Cloud, Matomo.js is blocked by uBlock origin. So in this case, Firefox tells you what kind of plugin or however blocked something. And then you can dive deeper and figure out, okay, what can I do that this plugin isn't blocking my script anymore. And this is what we will do step by step and what you also will learn within this talk. The sample size, as I said, I will be mainly using uBlock Origin because it's the best of these 5 ad blockers. So if you beat uBlock Origin, you beat all others as well, as we will see later. Overall, these 5 ad blockers that I tested are representing 115 million users all around the globe, with roughly 80% of their users on Chrome and 20% of them on Firefox, a little bit depending on the solution. So AdBlocker Plus has a lot more on Chrome than on Firefox, and uBlock and so on is more in 80/20. I only tested on Firefox. Little disclaimer here again. Firefox in combination with uBlock Origin is the hardest enemy to beat regarding the ad blocking circumvention. Chrome and Google is an ad company, so they make it a lot harder for ad blockers already to block stuff. So if you beat uBlock Origin and Firefox, you beat basically everything else. So that's why this is on all the screenshots, you always will see uBlock Origin. So this is the status quo. This is the default Matomo pixel. When we install it, when I copy it from my Matomo cloud instance, we see that we miss out on 55 million users. What? I just told you that there is 115 million users in the sample size, and this is already good news. Apparently, AdBlock Plus and AdGuard AdBlocker are not blocking the Matomo script at the very moment. This can change every day. It really depends on all the lists they implement, if they kind of decide that they want to use easy list as well and so on. So this, I don't think this will be forever in this situation. So it makes sense to also apply the tooling we do today to prevent this ad blockers in the future blocking us. But at the very moment, I checked this 5 days ago, these two didn't block the script, even if it's hosted on the central Matomo cloud instance, which is already great because we get 60 million users back without doing anything. So let's get into it. Here you see when we install the Matomo script that the Matomo cloud is a known tracking host. So when we install this, just in the ad blockers, they have lists and know, okay, Matomo.cloud is a central Matomo tracking instance. We should block this. But I told you how to figure out these things, why something is blocked. How do we know this, that it's blocked? So let's jump into the code a little bit and see how actually we can figure out what parts of the script are blocked and how we step by step can reduce the attack surface. So first of all, I copy here from my Matomo Cloud test instance. I copy in the script into my server, which just died, which is nice. Okay, let's reconnect here. So here we go. So I install the Matomo script. Let's give it a little bit of spacing. And then when I open my website, as I showed you here, when I reload this, you see at the bottom, Matomo Cloud is blocked by uBlock Origin. This is already good news because uBlock Origin has a feature to tell us why it blocks something. So here's when you open it, at the very bottom, you see this uBlock open the logger. And with this logger, we can figure out why something was blocked. So let's now reload the page. And now you also in logger basically see the same thing regarding the network tab. And in here, you see the rule why it was blocked and what request was blocked and was matched. When we click on this, we get further information. So you see the filter here, which means this double dash means beginning of the host, Matomo Cloud, and 3P means third party. Because this is a big important thing to keep in mind, which is good for us as defender against ad blockers. Ad blockers are on a thin line between what they can block and what they can't block, because they always are in fear of the users uninstalling them. Because if the user is too annoyed with an ad blocker blocking them, for example, if I go to matomo.cloud, and this page wouldn't load at all, even though I, as a user, want to open the page and then I figure out that, okay, it is my uBlock origin, I uninstall it or I deactivate it for this page. So this is a benefit for us. The ad blockers have to be defensive. They can't block too much. That's also why here 3P means third party. So when you directly open the matomo.cloud domain, it doesn't block anything. But this is just a side note. So let's get back to this page. And here we see, okay, it comes from a certain filter list. Filter list here you see easy privacy. Because how do ad blockers know what to block? They have a lot of long lists, the biggest one being easy list. I also mentioned you a few of the other big ones here in the slides. And within this list, there's IP addresses, there's hosts, there's paths, there's regex patterns. And if this pattern matches, the request is blocked. So let's look into this a little bit more. So when we are in the logger, we can actually click on the filter list here, and then it opened it in a new site. And then you can see the filter list that uBlock your origin has downloaded at this very moment. So this one is from today, no, from yesterday. And in here you see all the rules. We don't have to go through all of them, but let's look out for the Matomo one. I look for Matomo Cloud. And in here you see exactly that rule that was matched. Matomo Cloud third party, and we see it's 1.1. So for this certain host, there's only one rule in there. What's kind of interesting is when we just type in Matomo, we see that there's other Matomo instances, privately hosted ones, so not the central Matomo Cloud one, which are also blocked. And this usually is the problem. We will come to this later again as well. But if your domain, if your host gets flagged and known as a tracking host, you become a problem because you land in this list, and this can happen every time. We see there's a few of those in here, matomo.mirahese.org as well, and another one, and so on. But also certain path matches. And this one we will also talk about a little bit later in the talk. So let's get back to the slides. So now we know how the app blockers block something, but we still have our problem of Matomo Cloud being a known tracking host. And I don't want to self-host Matomo in this talk. This is not the way we are going. So we are trying to circumvent this block. So what we are doing is actually to rename something. We self-host and rename something. So what we saw before is that we have the source here loading from Matomo Cloud. And now we load it from our own domain. So this is just a Uber-based domain, a nice German hoster, where I just shortly got a domain and host files. And as you already see down here, so we have a two-step process of unblocking Matomo. The first one is the tracking script needs to be loaded. So the matomo.js, the JavaScript tracking. And already the first ad blocker is falling over. So here, Privacy Badger, you already see that with this hack, it already falls over and is loading the script. So how would we do this? So let's go here into I can close this one now because we don't need it anymore. Let's copy this URL and then go into our domain here. This is the single.uberspace domain /Matomo talk. And in here, we can just wget the Matomo script. You see, I downloaded it now, and now I can change it within my tracking script. I just say, okay, don't load this from the Matomo CDN anymore, but from single.uber.space /Matomo talk, and then Matomo.js. So let's see how this changed the situation. We load this now. And as we see, there is now a different rule that matches, which is already a good step. So we defended the first rule being Matomo Cloud as central instance being blocked. But now we see everything, so this rule, everything which is a /matomo.js and is not from GitHub gets blocked. So here again, next problem, Matomo.js is a known tracker file. What can we do against this? So you figure already there's a lot of renaming in this talk. We rename it to something. I just took the name freedom.js, and you see now all the ad blockers load the script at least. This is already a good step. So now we are fully one step further. Even uBlock origin now loads the script. So let's rename this freedom.js. Let's go down here, move this Matomo.js to freedom.js. And when we now reload the page, it isn't reloaded yet. Let's see. Loading, loading, loading. Okay, that's what I have the slides for. So if it doesn't work from the get-go, I can just continue from the slides. Okay, you can still hear me. I was just wondering if the internet is down. Okay, so when we rename this to the freedom.js, now we have the benefit that all of these ad blockers loaded, but they not yet send us the events we want. So next problem, even when we send the events, obviously Matomo Cloud, we are running back into the old problem we already had, that Matomo Cloud is a known tracking host. So we can't send any events to Matomo Cloud because otherwise they always directly get blocked because this domain is known. So let's see if we're back here again. No, we aren't. Okay, then I will just continue with the slides. So Matomo Cloud is still a known tracking host. You might have already figured it by now that we rename things. But in this case, it's more difficult because in this case, we need to actually self-host or the backend somewhat or reverse proxy it. Because when we just rename something, then the events land in nowhere and nothing happens, but we want them on our central Matomo Cloud instance. So what we do here is we use a reverse proxy script. I have one that I also linked you in the slides in the end, which is based on no PHP and which actually does that. So whatever you send to this endpoint, single.uber.space / Matomo talk / reverse / Matomo PHP gets directly forwarded to the Matomo Cloud, and in there you then have you actually can send against this. You see in comparison, there's a next ad blocker falling over. So Privacy Badger now finally sends us all the events. So now we really beat the first one. So now there's only 2 left which block us. So let's see if my test case is back up again. Nice. Okay, here we saw the Matomo.js. So did I save this? So here we go. Now you see, okay, Matomo.js gets loaded, but the request, here already you see that's the full tracking request gets blocked. And now we install the reverse proxy. How do we do this? As said, full on, hands-on in this talk. There's the repo where I forked the proxy, Matomo anti-AdBlock reverse proxy, no PHP, the raw file. So we get the URL, and then actually we can download this. So make dir ref or wget the file output matomo.php. So in here we now have the file. Yes, it loaded. And now we can also adapt our URL up here to be not Matomo Cloud anymore. So it's also single.uber.space / Matomo talk / Matomo.php. What's important here, you have to remove the URL down here, otherwise you have Matomo.php twice. Let's reload this. And what you see and what you might have already figured, obviously Matomo PHP also is in the block list. So we know this as a known path. Okay, let's rename it again. So let's rename this to Freedom PHP, however we want. So this is a name we can just choose ourselves, move Matomo PHP to Freedom PHP. This time also save. Okay. So let's see what happens now. uBlock origin still blocks this, but when we renamed this, we see the next ad blocker falling over. So this is AdBlock Ultimate, I think on the left it's called. And now we only have uBlock origin as last as last contender, as last enemy for our anti-ad blocking. So let's look into this, what their problem here still is. And what we see is, okay, there's a certain rule which matches on everything .php with a query parameter action name. So it seems to be, as said, this is always the line the ad blockers have to walk on. If they block too much, for example, they would block everything .php query parameter name, they would block a lot of forms or something. But apparently action underscore name is something used mostly or only by ad blockers. So they can block this without breaking the internet, without the users uninstalling their ad blocker. So now again, we go into the renaming game, yada yada. I will do this a little bit faster. So we now have the thing that we have to rename it in two places. We have to name it in the Matomo.js, but also in the reverse proxy, we have to reverse the renaming. Why? So if we don't reverse the renaming, then in our central instance in Matomo Cloud, we don't get the action name anymore because Matomo Cloud expects it to come with the variable name action name. And if you renamed it to something like Simon's action or whatever, or freedom action name, Matomo Cloud can't match this anymore and just throws it away. And this is bad for us. So we have to now adapt two places. We have to adapt it in the freedom.js and also in the reverse proxy. So here, let's check out freedom.js. You just look for action name. It's somewhere here in the minified JavaScript. Freedom action name, save, and now also in the backend, the reverse proxy. Okay, apparently I broke this one. So move no PHP to Matomo to freedom.php, freedom to freedom.php. Okay, now here we have the correct script. Oh, something I forgot before. I'm very sorry. We obviously have to set the backend URL of our reverse proxy, which is simonfry.matomo.cloud/matomo.php. Otherwise, the events are sent into nowhere. And here also we do the reverse setting of the get parameters. So freedom action, it's called freedom action name is the same as, okay, I mixed it up. Freedom action name. So here in the front, we have to set the action name because this is the one which is sent to the upstream to Matomo Cloud. Okay, so now this also works. Let's see what it does to our tracking. If we now finally beat uBlock origin, let's see, reload this, and we don't. We still don't. We did so much. We renamed everything and so on and so on. And now to the more end of the talk, I have to go into a completely new concept with you. It's called a ping or like a beacon request. And this is this one here. So what you see, uBlock blocks everything which is a ping to a third party. So the problem is 99% of this beacon requests are trackers. So it's again super easy for uBlock to block this without breaking the internet, without users installing it. What the hell is a beacon request? I guess none of you or not too much of you heard this before. And this actually is an API in the browser which was initiated, was created for tracking. So the thing is, the beacon API is this one here, the line navigator.send beacon. You can send post requests, you can send all the tracking data you want, and it's an asynchronous, non-blocking request. And the important part, the browser guarantees that it gets sent because it solves a problem that we had before that was mostly done with this little code snippet here. You want to track when a user enters the page, that is easy. When they open it, they load the JavaScript, and then you send your first event. But also you want to track when the user closes the tab, when the user leaves the tab for another tab or so on. And for that, in the past, we used the unload event. And when you then clicked on leave the tab or close the tab with this little cross, sometimes you might remember this. We had in the past that it took 3, 4, 5 seconds for the tab to close. They were like, yeah, why don't you close? And you click it 5 times. And this is because of exactly this code snippet, which does not work anymore, because most of the browsers, they were like, okay, this is really bad for UX. They block this unload event now, but they needed to give an alternative. So what this code actually does, what you see here, there's two things which are problematic for the UX and for the performance, and why the browsers forbid this kind of like remove the unload event. So when you close the tab, this code gets executed, and you could send your tracking request asynchronous. So you close it directly closes the tab, and then the request is sent. Eventually, this is the problem with this code, that the moment you close the tab, all the context of this tab gets destroyed because the browser is cleaning up, and it might not send the event. So the marketers and their techies actually came to the point, okay, if we send this as a synchronous event so that the browser can't close before the request is sent, the request is definitely sent, and we don't really care about people leaving our site if they have bad experience. So they all added this false in here, which makes the request synchronous. And then you had this problem of like it never closing. And for this, the beacon request was created so that actually on close, you can send this beacon whenever someone leaves the tab, enters the tab, and so on. But as it was especially created for this use case, for sending tracking events in a reliable but asynchronous manner, it's super easy for ad blockers to block them, because most of the app, like, it's basically, there's no application logic which works with this request, because it's a fire and forget request with this beacon request, so it's blocked. Nice thing is, Matomo has already in the Matomo.js an option to disable this. So let's do this. Up here, I actually have my copy paste part down here, so I don't have to write everything, or if I forget, or if I'm too nervous. So now we save this, and now, as we will see, even uBlock origin loads our events and sends our events. So you see here, here's the freedom.js, our script is loaded, and then also our event is sent. Awesome. So we finally beat all the ad blockers. The one thing we wanted for this talk, you can use the step-by-step process. Actually, also the slides are linked as well. You can just copy the code and copy the steps in here. They are written in a way that you can do it yourself. Awesome. We are done. Not fully. There's always a but, because we are in an everlasting cat and mouse game. And the thing here is, what I showed you today is the status quo. And then the ad blockers will find new ways to block you. So you always have to be on the outlook and see, oh, am I blocked? If yes, why? Use the console. That's why I did this too much and so much in this talk, because I wanted you to know how I go about this and how I figure it out. Because the moment you're blocked again, you have to read the rules and figure out why something is blocked again. So also our new host is a big problem, well known at some point. So my single.uber.space, if I use it too much, or if I'm on a big website, at some point people will figure, oh, actually this is a domain which serves Matomo in the end, or like another tracking script. And then it will land on the AdBlock list, as we saw with this few private Matomo instances. And then we have the same problem again as with a Matomo cloud instance. So what we could do is we rotate the domains of the reverse proxy every X days. This is a thing we can't really win, because the problem is the moment when, I don't know, you have one enemy, you have one user being super annoyed by you rotating your proxy, which always means you have to buy a new domain, you have to adapt, tell your techies, or like adapt your code to actually change it, that actually the new domain is used. It's just one commit away from this domain being blocked again. So it takes you more time to create a new domain than it takes the ad blockers for blocking it. And if you have a user who's annoyed, who will just check every day, and then I think you can't win this race. Another idea is to actually host the reverse proxy on the very same domain. So what you saw, I just have this single Uber space domain, but I could also just take the no PHP reverse proxy and also host the Matomo freedom.js on my own simon-frey.com website, because then the host can't be blocked anymore. Because, for example, I'm Amnesty International, or I'm Simon, or I'm Google, or whoever. The user wants to go to my website for a reason. They want to open the website. And if they open the website and they see, oh, this website is blocked because of your ad blocker, and if I'm not too shady and if the user actually knows, oh, I want to open the website, they will just uninstall the ad blocker or deactivate it for the site. So the ad blockers can't do this to block your main domain. Another thing that will happen, even if I host the JavaScript in the reverse proxy on my main domain, is that obviously freedom.js, no PHP, all the names I have for it will again be known at some point. We can use the same option. We can just rotate the paths every day or every X days. Again, you're in a cat and mouse game. You have to be faster. It takes you more time. It doesn't take you more money because you don't need a new domain, but it takes you more time to do this than it takes for the ad blockers or for a user who is annoyed to actually get you blocked. A nifty idea I like here is actually to use a path of a common known dependency. So you don't call it freedom.js, you call it jQuery.js. And then the ad blockers, again, can't block it because they would break most of the websites on the internet who use jQuery, and also yours. And then, again, you have a back and forth. They could combine your domain and the path and so on. So it's always a figuring out, am I blocked, why I am, and what can I do against it? And yeah, but these are two ideas how you actually could then in this moment change something again to get you unblocked. And I hope you understood the process within this talk. One last thing I want to talk about, which is a little bit different, but on the same topic. It's called cookie-geddon within the ad tech space. And it means that the browsers will remove third-party cookies. They say soon, some already do. I think Safari is already doing it. Chrome already delayed this for 3 to 4 times because obviously Google's biggest revenue is their ad part, their ad tech part of their company, and they will not change anything within Chrome until they are sure they still can track the users even without third-party cookies. So what their plan is to actually build something new that no one else can track the users, but only Google. So actually their ad platform gets more valuable again. What is a third-party cookie? If you don't know this, so first party is the domain you connect to or the user. So we two are the ones talking, and then you have the tracking server, single Uber space, Matomo cloud, whatever. And then when you connect to this, the browser knows, okay, this is not something I directly need. This is not from the first party where the user wants to access it. And this third party cannot save a cookie. Why would the third party want this? And here we go into territory where it's really ad tech. You need third-party cookies to track users across different websites. Because, for example, if we only have our tracking a cookie on NewYorkTimes.com, top left logo, you only know, okay, there's a user, maybe you have a cookie, the user comes back a week later, you know, oh, that user read this article, a week later that article, and so on. But you only know it for New York Times. When the same user, like the same person, Simon as a human, opens Aldi.com or DE, there's a new profile. It's, oh, Simon shopped this and that, so on and so on. But these two profiles can never be combined because it's two different entities. And if you have a third party in the middle, Google Ads, for example, or also if we would do this with Matomo, then we could combine this and be like, hey, there was a user read that article on New York Times, a day later bought that thing on Aldi and so on, and build a huge, huge user profile, know more about the users, track them, and be this big ass data kraken that I have here in the middle. Good news, we don't need this. So whenever a customer of yours is like, oh, cookie-geddon, is this a problem for you or like a problem for Matomo? As we only do first-party cookies, like Matomo, the solution or what we use it for is we want to know about our own users on our website. If they read a New York Times article, if they come back, how long they're on the website and so on. We don't want to build a global network of data, crawl that all together. Would also be kind of hard with GDPR and so on. So for Matomo, whenever someone tells you, oh, cookie-geddon, and someone will remove the third-party cookies, you can just be relaxed and like, hey, this doesn't apply. This also doesn't apply at the very moment, even if you use a third party. So Matomo.cloud, single Uber space, the Matomo script is only setting first-party cookies. So it's only setting it for the simon-frey.com or your website. We don't have third-party cookies in Matomo, which is a great thing. So just if someone comes with that problem to you, can be like, hey, this actually will not happen for Matomo because we don't have this objective of wanting to track users all across the internet. One last thing before I come to the end. There's a solution for all of the problems in this talk. There's a solution for you have to rotate your domain, you have to first party install it, you have to rotate your paths, and so on and so on. And this solution is called server-side tracking. So if the tracking is directly done on the server, the browser can't block it. What you see here is the user connects to my first party, Simon, and when this happens on my web router, on my server, simon-frey.com, I send, oh, there's a user with that certain IP address, maybe certain other identification attributes, and send this to the tracking server, get back data, oh, this tracking worked, and then deliver the content. The browser can't do anything about this because there is no connection when the browser actually sees the tracking server. Again, when you do this, please, 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 still data privacy stuff, let the users opt out, and so on and so on. But this would be the solution for everything. We don't have problems with being our paths being blocked anymore, with needing JavaScript and so on. So this is something that we could implement, server-side tracking, which solves all of this. That, I don't know, you have this in your shop system, that directly when someone purchased something, you send this from the server. This is a lot harder. This is why it's not done yet. Than just putting in the JavaScript and doing everything in the front end. But just that you know, there is a solution to this whole cat and mouse game, and it's called server-side tracking. I will not go into deeper detail because there is a talk or a discussion about this at 6 p.m. test. Ronan, please correct me if I'm wrong again with the time, but I think it is 6 p.m. Why Matomo has to create a MTM server-side. So also check in there if you're interested in the server-side tracking. I also know a little bit stuff about that, so you can also reach out to me. Again, if you need help with anything you learned in this talk, implementing it, please reach out to me. I do this for a living, so I'm happy to help and get paid for things. Yeah, if there are any questions, please reach out in the chat. Ronan will read them. I also will try to read the chat. And if you want the slides, the links, and also when we later have a recording, you will find them on this domain, simon.red/matomocamp-24. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm open to questions. Ron, I can't hear you. I'm not sure if it's only me.
You cannot hear me. That's an issue.
Now I hear you.
Okay. So yes, so I'm confirming you that the roundtable about server-side tagging will be at 6 p.m. today. So we will have, in fact, 3 experts. So Peter Bolke, Ronan Hello, and Denis, sorry for the family name, Golebursky, who will talk about server-side tagging. So the 3 of them have some experience with competitor solution, and we'll explain that in detail. We have 17 minutes left for questions. I can see as well that the next speaker is already ready to come on stage, but not right now, Marcus, just hold for a minute, because we do have a lot of questions within the chat. So I'm going to start by the first one, which is from El Madi Shaker, who is really active today. Thank you very much for being with us and asking lots of questions. So first question is, are on-premise users also affected by the ad blocker issue, or are only Matomo Cloud users?
Yes, you're also affected. Let me shortly just so that we have that later also on the recording. I will share the question here. Okay. So yes, on-premise users are also affected. So you also have the problem that you will get blocked at some point. As said, the main thing is the cat and mouse game. And at this very moment, Matomo Cloud is known. But if you say, I don't know, matomo.simonsdomain.com, if it gets big enough, you also will get blocked. So this is something everyone is affected by, the bigger the domain gets.
Thank you very much. Next question. Next question is, does it change anything if you are using Matomo Tag Manager rather than the traditional Matomo tracking code?
I can't tell you that. I don't know, as I know, don't use the Tag Manager.
Okay, I'm going to rephrase it. So you show us different calls which are made to Matomo.js. when we are using Matomo tag managers, we get the same call, but in addition to that, we get something called container something.js. So let's say here I guess that the lovely name that we are looking at, or the template, is container underscore and then some let's say some letters and figures. I just would like to know if on your side you have seen, for example, some rules when you see the word container appearing.
Yeah, container wasn't a problem I saw.
Okay.
Usually you are always have a problem when there's any word containing something like at in it. So at or at space or so, or tracking. So these words obviously directly get removed. With containers, I didn't see a problem. And as kind of what we did here, you can do this for everything JavaScript. So if you have the tag manager as well, which is a different script or so, you can just rename it. You can do that things. The important part is what the AdBlockers do right now. They 99% only block on the URLs, so on the names. That's why you saw me doing the renaming and this working. There might be a point where they also chain or like kind of look on into the files, maybe with hashes of the files or something. And then there's a new game that you kind of have to adapt the files on the fly, but this also is doable. So yeah, it doesn't change anything in the how do we defend. We still need to rename things. We still need to do things. And I didn't see a problem with container, the word container.
Perfect. Next question is, are there steps that you did to overcome the ad blocker written in some documentation so that we can read it later? I mean, do you have any guide or any content on your website which is explaining back all the steps that you show rather than in the video recording?
Yes. So actually the idea for slides is that they are self-explanatory. So you can just like go through the slides. As you see down here, or if you just open this, if we go to simon.red/MatomoCamp24, you can download the slides. And I also plan to have a transcript of the talk with more of a blog post kind of style, also here on this page. So this is the page with all the resources for actually you doing it yourself. You also have the links down here, which show you to the GitHub repos that you might need.
Okay, I may have an additional question because clearly here you are giving away a lot of information and stuff, and you say that you are doing this for during your leisure time, your free time. Do you have any, I mean, are you providing any consultancy services, or are you used to provide consultancy services about these specific topics or any topics which are Matomo related?
Yeah. So everything that you can book me for my knowledge. I don't have any particular. I do this for Matomo. I do this more overall for EdTech, as said, because the solutions are quite similar. If I do them for Matomo, I do them for Google Ads or whatever. So please reach out to meet@simon-frey.com. That's also on the website as well, or you see here in the slides. I'm super happy to help there as a freelancer. Also, depending how you want this on an hourly basis, consulting, or if you just say, hey, I have that problem, please Simon solve it for me, and then I can tell you how much it would cost, and then I think we will figure something out.
Sorry, curiosity question. Feel free to not answer if you don't want to, but how much will you are we looking at if let's say someone wants to solve, let's say, the major ad blocker issue that they have? They have a budget. They don't know, in fact, how much it will cost, but for you, so they come to you saying like, okay, we suspect that ad blockers are blocking a huge part of our Matomo traffic website. Let's imagine that they are techy enough, they just don't know the subject. How much would you charge them, for example, for this consultancy project so that their Matomo tracking code will work fine, considering that they can copy and paste the different tracking code that you can send them?
Yeah. Let's assume you're technical enough, then you definitely will get, as said, the slides and talk and everything for free. Just help yourself. And then consulting on top would be roughly 1,000 per day.
Okay. Okay, so at least we know already for different, let's say, people who need it, that they need to look at 1 day of work of your consultancy work. Okay. We have 10 minutes left. Question from Dimitri Bou. can we set somewhere an alert once you can? Oh, wow. Can we set somewhere an alert once you can't track any longer a certain percent of transaction? In other words, detects when it's time to update the reverse proxy.
I don't know a service for that. I researched this actually as I was thinking about maybe building this in a product. So no, at the very moment there isn't a service for it. If there's enough interest, I'm happy to help with building one. One thing that you can do and how I would approach if you want to check out if you are blocked, just use a headless browser and then kind of check there what I showed you in the talk of being like, hey, is there a certain amount of is your request blocked? And as said, if you are fine by uBlock Origin, you're mostly fine by all others, or you just install 10 ad blockers in this headless browser and check it there. If you want this as a managed service, yeah, we could build this, but so far I didn't have enough. Like in my market research, I didn't find enough people actually need this, so it wasn't worth building it yet. So if I would build it, I would build it with a headless browser and just let it run every day.
Awesome. I do not see any questions left in the chat. Do you have any questions that you would like to ask yourself, because you were expecting it to see it within the chat, but you didn't, and you wish you could answer it?
No. All I tried to answer everything within the talk already. Yeah, happy if you share this, if you share the knowledge, if you share the slides and so on. Help yourself there. I also posted within the YouTube chat. I posted the link to the slides as well. If you couldn't see them from the slides or like from the screen share. And then for all Germans out there, if you made it through this and you want to have it a second time, so see you at 3 p.m. in the German version.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Simon. Thank you very much for your time. You have lots of thank you within the chat. Looking forward for the next conference from you in German, which will be let me look at it within the time schedule.
3 p.m. I think.
3 p.m. Yes, correct.
Perfect.
Thank you so much. And I invite then the next speaker, so to say Marcus, to come on stage if he's ready.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.